Am I the wrong one for not marrying the girl I'm supposed to be and causing major problems for my family? This will sound unbelievable to those not from my country. All I can say is that it is real. When I was 5, my parents brought my dad's friend's daughter X, about 3, to live with me and sister Y, 7. X's family was poor and couldn't support their children. They had 6, so they sent X here because they really trusted my parents. X, Y, and I grew up together, and my parents were awesome to all 3 of us. I had a lot of fun growing up and I am extremely close to my family. I'm now 29. 3 years back, I went abroad for my master's and then went back to my country. There, I met a girl P and we fell in love. I'd like to propose soon and felt like this would be a good time to introduce P to my family. Why I already knew of her and P just graduated. This weekend I told my family that I would like for them to meet someone special and set up a video call. No idea who they were expecting. But when they realized P was my girlfriend, everything just blew up. Apparently, they had already discussed and arranged my marriage with X years back, and she was the one I would have to marry. X was aware, her father had told her. Cue lots of screaming and yelling, including some choice words from X to P about how she's a modern girl, euphemism in my culture for slut, and how she must be after me for my money. She comes from a richer family. I was just too shocked to react initially. The next day I told my parents that I look at X's family. They started saying ridiculous things like they've never let her into my room, while apparently Y was allowed, and drawing all sorts of other parallels between X and Y, trying to demonstrate why X wasn't like my sister. They also said stuff like no one can understand me better than X and that she will keep the family together while P will alienate me from them. They also told me I'm ruining the family. X also cried non-stop and then shut herself in the room, accusing me of not wanting her only because she was poor amongst other things. She also said no one from her village would marry her now because her family has told everyone back home that she's going to be marrying me. My sister was not aware of any of this either. Now, I told X I don't care that no one will marry her from her village. It is a likely possibility, or that her life is ruined. I also told my parents I won't ruin my life for them to be able to keep their word. X's father is coming to our house once he's able to. Transport restrictions still in place, but he had a long phone call with parents. I'm sure a lot of emotional blackmail is to follow, and I already feel rather guilty about X because she's a nice girl. My sister is on my side, but even if my parents cut me off and at the risk of X ruining her life, I am not going to go ahead with this at all. Am I the wrong one? Edit. A lot of people asking me where I'm from. It's a SE Asian country. Just don't want to say if it's the exact place you guys are asking about. X was apparently aware I didn't know, but she was told by my parents and hers that I'm a family man and will do the right thing, so there's no need to worry. She's basically accused me of wrecking the family too. My sister is really upset on my behalf, and also that she wasn't told any of this. My sister's family, her husband and his parents, have said if there's any sort of confrontation, they'll be there to back me up. Not sure if this detail counts, but P is also from my country, but also came abroad to study. So that's not a reason as to why my parents are unaccepting of P. They just want me to marry X. Not the wrong one. Although to some extent it sounds like X is a victim here too, so I think saying you don't care that no one will marry her from her village was a bit harsh. She's obviously been given the impression that you are on board with the idea of marrying her. Your parents are at fault here. If they didn't want you to see X as your sister, they probably should have told you that a few decades ago. Not the wrong one for rejecting an arranged marriage. End of story. Am I the wrong one for not wanting my parents to adopt another teenage girl? I, 15 years old female, live with my parents, mid-40s, and my brother, 9 years old male. It's always been a dream of my parents to adopt. Me and bro are bio kids, and they had come to the decision that they want to adopt an older kid. They got matched with Jess, who is 13. Due to the current situation, she is not living with us, but we've met before and she's spent a weekend with us in January. Jess, despite sometimes being sweet and kind, is very high maintenance and has a lot of anxiety and anger problems. She can go from 0 to 1000 really quick. During her stay, she got triggered by something when we were in public. She and I went to a clothes shop and my parents were in a cafe nearby. Some guy accidentally grabbed her by her shoulder as he thought she was his daughter, and he apologized immediately, and started screaming. I was the only person there, and I tried to calm her down, but she ran off. She was found, shaken, but safe, an hour later. I then got grounded as I had failed in being responsible for my sister. I said I didn't have a sister. My parents were angry about this and said that how dare I be rude about her. Don't I know how much she's been through? She's had other outbursts, but none so huge in public. She can be cold and untrusting and was very clingy to my parents. I do admire her, and think she's very brave, but I don't want to live with her. My parents call Jess often. I often say hi, and try to be civil and supportive, but it seems like the only thing my parents can talk about is Jess, and how brave she is, and she isn't even here yet. We live in a 3-bedroom house, and my parents promised to move to a bigger one later this year. Recently, my parents broke the news to me that Jess will move into my room, and I can pick whether I want to share a room with bro, or Jess. I don't want to share with either. My brother is messy, loud and is your average 9-yo boy, and Jess has night terrors and screams the house down, and it's enough having to open my house to her, but I value my privacy a lot and don't want her in my room, which is like my special place. I was crushed. I asked if we were still moving, and my parents were like, "We like this place and have no solid plan." I freaked out and was like, "You guys are forgetting you have another daughter and are too excited about the shiny new one to remember that the one you have has feelings and boundaries, and if you're changing everything I've ever known, at least I deserve to be listened to. If this is how life's going to be, I don't want to have a sister." Good to note, my room is big enough to have a wall put in, and my parents considered it a few years back. I would be happy with that. They refuse, even though we can easily afford it, because it is too much effort. My parents are offended that I'm not being welcoming towards my sister, and I'm offended that the life I knew is going to be turned upside down, and I'm not going to have the thing I value most, my privacy. Am I the wrong one? Update. This blew up. Enough to reach Jess. She called me and we had a good heart-to-heart. She was unaware of the situation, and felt really uncomfortable about it. We had a family meeting via Skype to explain to my parents why this was a bad idea, and showed them some of the comments in this thread. They apologized and they said they would try to improve their behavior. We asked to put up a wall, and they agreed. My father is currently watching a video on how to do it lol. Jess also says hi to everyone, and thanks you for looking out for her. Not the wrong one. I bet your parents think that taking in Jess is such a kind thing to do. They can't possibly be wrong and everyone needs to just get on board. However, you are a person and your feelings also matter. They are being really heavy-handed and not making any effort to make you comfortable. Can you ask them to attend family counseling before Jess arrives? If they refuse, do you have access to a social worker or someone as part of this process that you could talk to? Hearing from an independent professional that they need to consider your feelings might help them understand. Not the wrong one. They absolutely shouldn't be forcing you out of your room, or forcing you to share it. If all children can have their own rooms, they're not ready to adopt. They're not asking 2 small children to share, they're asking 2 teenage girls who aren't biological siblings, haven't grown up together and one has complex needs. Or for a teenage girl to share with her younger brother, which is completely inappropriate. Put your foot down and insist that it's your room, and you're not moving or sharing. Either they find a solution or the adoption cannot go ahead. Am I the wrong one for only going out to eat with my uncle after the rest of my family disagreed with my restaurant choice? I, F21, am currently living with my uncle and his family while I attend university. In my family it's tradition for everyone to invite out their family for their birthday. The person celebrating their birthday pays. My birthday was yesterday and luckily restaurants here have already opened up. About a week in advance I chose a Moroccan couscous restaurant and made a reservation. I briefly mentioned it to the rest of the family at dinner, but I don't think most of them were listening. 2 days ago I reminded everybody where we were going. Everybody except for my uncle started to complain about the choice. My extremely picky cousin, 17, apparently hates Moroccan food, even though I don't think he's ever tried it. My aunt is uncomfortable with going to that kind of restaurant. My other cousin, 26, is a vegan and didn't think he would be able to eat a lot of things, and his girlfriend didn't want to eat there because she's on a raw food diet. My other cousin is apparently on a diet and didn't want to go somewhere where she could get a salad. It didn't really bother me that they disagreed with my choice, but what bothered me was that they hadn't even tried the food or looked at the menu, but already didn't want to go. They asked me to change my choice and instead that we could go to a nearby restaurant that they go to every week and that I don't really like. I refused and said they just didn't have to come. Only my uncle came with me when we went to the restaurant yesterday, which I'm happy about because I know the rest of the family would have done nothing but complain. It was delicious and it was nice eating with an actually adventurous person for once. Now the rest of the family is angry at us because birthday meals usually include the whole family, and they think it's inconsiderate of us to have eaten without them. I think it's their fault for not even wanting to try it. Am I the wrong one? Edit. Thank you everyone for your judgments. I saw a lot of people confused about paying when it's your birthday. Where I'm from it's the custom, not just in my family, but everywhere. I think it's a nice custom. That way no guest worries about not being able to pay, and it's nice to be able to pay for family and friends to have a nice meal. Not the wrong one. Also, Isn't a lot of Moroccan food plant-based and healthy? Not the wrong one, also your uncle is a good man. Am I the wrong one for refusing to be in my father's wedding even though I cheated too? A story as old as time. My F27 father, 50, cheated on my mother for 5 years with a younger woman currently 32, and he left my mother when mistress got pregnant. It tore our family apart. I resent my father because my mother actually loved him and she is still dealing with this. Even 1 year after he left her, I stayed on okay terms with him because I was the one to pick up and drop off my younger brother at his place. Last week when I picked up my brother, my father had big news. He proposed to his girlfriend and wanted me as his best woman. It made me kinda mad, NGL. But I kept calm, and told him no. He said that what happened between him and mom was none of our business and that I should respect his new relationship. I said I respect it, but that doesn't mean I condone it. Obviously I would never hound him randomly about it. But I don't approve of it and I don't like her. She knew the whole time my mom and we existed. Well, my dad was having none of it and told me to get off my high horse because I had cheated too and I had no right. And I guess, when I was 17 I was with this boy for 3 months. I went to a party, got crap-faced and made out with a classmate for a total of 10 minutes. I felt so bad that I called my boyfriend crying and we talked it out. We broke up. I told my dad and in 10 years I never did something like that again. I have been with my partner for 5 years. I told him he could not equate it at all. He called me a hypocrite, and that he was glad to know who I am. Driving home I felt like I was a bit harsh. He is still my father and he is not a bad father. I just don't want to be in his wedding. I would still go, but am I the wrong one? Not the wrong one. You kissed another guy once when you were still a kid. Your dad hid the fact that he's been screwing another woman, did it for 5 years, and knocked her up. The situations aren't even comparable. Your dad is trying to manipulate you by saying you cheated too. The situations are not the same. He's the a-hole. Not the wrong one. You were 17 and made a drunken bad decision for 10 minutes, then felt horrible about it. He was in his 40s with a wife and children, made a calculated horrible decision for 5 years, and doesn't seem to feel bad or accept responsibility. Not the same thing at all. Am I the wrong one for refusing to support my niece's lifestyle? My sister and her husband were sent to prison at the start of this year, and sadly won't be released for a few years. That left me to look after their 15-year-old daughter Amy. I was perfectly happy to do this, but as most of their wealth was seized for being ill-gotten, it's meant that I've been having to care for her out of my own pocket. Once again, this doesn't bother me, but it's meant massive life changes for the kid. Firstly, they sent her to a private school. I can't afford anywhere near those fees, so I had to transfer her to a local school. She was upset at this at first, but she quickly made friends and is excelling academically, so this isn't a huge problem. She's been off school for the last few months anyway due to the situation. A bigger problem is clothing. Like my sister Amy loves fashion and designer stuff. She's still got a lot of stuff that her parents got her, but she's always on the lookout for new clothes. Unfortunately, I can't afford anywhere near the sort of stuff she likes, and I also have 2 children of my own whose clothing I have to pay for. I have told my sister this, but she insists I should make allowances because her daughter is going through a tough time. Amy also really doesn't get along with my daughter Hannah, who is 11. She bullies her, calls her stupid and ugly, tells her none of her friends really like her, etc. She has made her cry on many occasions and often continues to taunt Hannah while she cries. Yesterday I caught Amy trying to buy a dress costing over $1,000 with my card. I was fuming and had a long conversation with her. She cried, and sobbed that she just wanted one nice thing. My sister called from the prison, and Amy cried over the phone that she hates here and I treat her unfairly. I spoke to my sister afterwards and she begged me to go easy on her daughter because she's still adjusting. I put food on this kid's plate. I buy her whatever clothes I can afford, even if they aren't to her taste. I take her to visit her parents as much as possible. They're held in different facilities, and I do all of that on top of working and looking after my own children. I told my sister that I was willing to look after her daughter for as long as she needs, but if anything like the card incident happens again, or if she continues to pick on my daughter, there will be serious consequences for her. My sister wanted to argue, but they get limited time on the prison phone. I think what I'm doing is right. I get that the kid is going through a tough time, and I'm doing everything I can to be there for her, but I can't just tolerate bad behavior or bullying, and I can't afford to pay for her expensive clothing. The fact that she's struggling to deal with what happened to her parents doesn't change that. Not the wrong one, obviously, but how are you supporting this child's transition? Is she in therapy yet? Not the wrong one. Your sister is at a whole new level of entitlement here. Her own choices have placed Amy in this situation, And it's fallen on you to care for her. You have stepped up and it sounds like you're doing a bang-up job. Your responsibilities are to ensure that Amy is fed, clothed, housed, educated, and loved/supported. You're doing all those things. Your responsibilities do not extend to buying Amy designer clothing, much less a dress that costs $1,000 if you are on a budget. Amy is indeed going through a tough time, but she needs to learn a couple of tough lessons. Namely, your income can't cover the same lifestyle that her mother's ill-gotten funds did. She is not owed designer clothes. Using your credit card without your permission is absolutely stealing, and is not justified by wanting one nice thing. Good for you for role modeling some sane and reasonable values for this poor girl before she grows up to repeat all of her mother's mistakes. Am I the wrong one for treating my two daughters' pregnancies differently? When my oldest told me she was pregnant, she was still in college, unemployed, and the baby's father was refusing to be involved. I was not thrilled, but I provided all the help I could and took care of her. I was having a health crisis at the time, so I was very stressed out. I love my grandchild, but the birth didn't exactly happen in the happiest of circumstances. My oldest daughter ended up back in a relationship with the baby's father and they are happy and stable now. My younger daughter announced her pregnancy a few months ago and the situation cannot be more different. She's married to her husband who she's been with for several of years. They're both financially stable and the baby is clearly planned. I have had zero stress dealing with my daughter's pregnancy this time and I've been generally happier about it. I was unknowingly proving I was more excited this time around, which I have since corrected. I also planned a baby shower for my youngest, which I didn't do for my oldest. My oldest is furious. I can imagine why, but I feel she should understand how different the circumstances were. She's said some really hurtful things to me and has prevented me from seeing my grandchild, even on the phone. I have already apologized a few times, but it hasn't made a difference. My youngest is now having some pregnancy-related health issues and we're feeling very scared. I got a text from my oldest yesterday that if it were her having a health scare during her pregnancy, I would have probably celebrated. I broke down crying because I was so hurt. Am I wrong here? Not the wrong one based on your version of the differences between pregnancies. I was like your oldest daughter and my sister was like your youngest. While you are not the wrong one, your oldest daughter is probably feeling hurt and somewhat jealous right now. It can be hard to be the kid seen as the F-up. Even if you don't see your oldest that way, she probably feels that way and watching how you've treated the youngest has exacerbated it. Oldest could be handling it better, but she is probably feeling a storm of emotions as well. Sister competition is lifelong and can be rough sometimes. Everyone is wrong here. You definitely were the a-hole with the oldest's pregnancy. Not planning a baby shower and then doing so for your youngest is terrible. And that is probably just one of many ways that your different feelings for the two pregnancies showed. Your oldest is playing dirty with her comments about her sister's health issues and withholding the grandchild. I'm curious if your apology was a heartfelt and earnest one. Of it was more of a "I'm sorry, but I hope you guys can work it out." It sounds like there needs to be a good heart-to-heart conversation. ETA. To those replying and focusing on just the shower. It's not just the shower, that is just one example that the OP provided. For your daughter, years later, to feel like you'd celebrate a health problem during her pregnancy is quite telling. That feeling didn't develop spontaneously, it's rooted in the way OP treated her during the pregnancy. Thank you all for listening. Have a great day. See you later.